the sex this way or do you enjoy the sex that way? You know, and that's what determines what you do with your life. It's all pleasure and pain. See, the real part of it, yes, people get, I'm sure there's all kinds of things to raise about gay marriages and so on and so forth. But the fundamental point is, how do they make this work? How come 30 years ago this wouldn't have passed? 40 years ago it wouldn't have come close. 50 years ago you wouldn't even have raised the issue. And they say, well, that's because everybody was homophobic. No, it's because, in fact, they've spent years, decades. This is part of what Russell was involved in. Okay? And it wasn't even that he liked homosexuals. He just wanted the idea of sexual freedom, pleasure, and pain being the defining character of human nature. Then what's your argument? How can you argue? You know, what's your philosophical? You say human beings are animals. It's all pleasure and pain. Okay? Now I can show you something. Monkeys engage in homosexual activity. Okay? You think it's nature that says we should have children and be heterosexual. No. All kinds of animals are a little squishy. Okay? And why? Because they get a certain amount of pleasure out of it. Now, if you have a human being, what's his human right? His human right is to have the pleasures as long as it doesn't harm somebody else. So if you have two consenting adults, they both get pleasure out of it. What is a heterosexual marriage about? It's about children? No, there's no pleasure in children. That's pain. So, you have to.
That is so bad.
Okay.
And the point is the population also.
Yeah, of course. And then it becomes the fact that you're producing. Because children, the future. What's the whole point of children? It's the future. You're contributing something to the future. You don't know how it's going to turn out, but it's a human being. It has creative potential, and that human being is going to be part of the future. And they're telling you, forget the future. It's all how you feel. It's all pleasure and pain. And so we saw the most extreme. Once you went past the following form, that was I think that was a bit of a threshold. AIDS. Here you had a disease. A disease.
Right.
Okay. We were accused of being fascists for suggesting testing and so on and so forth. Okay, we were called and what was the argument of the gay lobby? Okay, it was, we have a right. My disease has a right to spread because it's part of my pleasure. In order for me to have pleasure, I have to have the right to engage in this kind of sexual activity as I please. I mean, I have to have a consenting adult. Now, once you said that a disease has a civil right,
Oh my God.
in order to carry out sexual activity, where else do you go after that?
What is medical law?
What are you going to say? Now, I tell you, one of the great ironies I did see in this, even though it's still a contention, is some members of what you might call the gay community or whatever, at a certain point, were less hostile, a certain small percentage, maybe 10%, but not an insignificant percentage. Why? Because they realized that their friends were dead. Their best friends were dead. A lot of them. Tens of thousands. I met gay people who said, look, I don't have a friend left in the world. I'm the only one left. And so some of them had enough sense to say, maybe you were right. Maybe you're not a bunch of, concentration camp guards or something. So that's what you have. You have to stick by the truth. And then you may even win friends of the most unusual sorts. But that's what they've done. And yes, they don't want to reproduce people. Who? Oh.
Well, I just want to add, just as a brief comment, I think we all know that the oligarchy puts a lot of time and effort into making sure that we as human beings are isolated and separated. So I think it's really important to understand that there's a huge difference between anti-gay culture anti-gay. So, you know, I completely support being anti-gay culture. I do think that, you know, it's a completely degenerate culture. They're trying to, you know, like you said, they're trying to end the future, but there's a difference between saying, you know, oh, all gay people are bad because, you know,
Yeah.
I've looked at both extremes. Extremes are bad. We gotta, you know.
No, I have no, look, it's, you know, there's also, you know, sometimes you don't like the sin, but you love the sinner.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, why don't we wrap it up?
I think Willis has brought some food for everybody to eat all this time again.
You gotta get a little muscle on your